This is Kyle. That is Laura. This is He Said, She Said. Laura, happy post-Thanksgiving. How was it?
It was fantastical.
Yeah. So we're going to do something a little bit different tonight. Periodically, we get emails sent to us from readers and from people that you work with and so forth, asking questions. And so I got an email some time back, and I thought that it would be really good tonight to read it because I think that the question and what he asks, I think a lot of us have dealt with that in the past through our divorce. So if you'll bear with me real quick, I'll read just briefly what he wrote, and then we'll kind of talk about it, because I think that he's got a lot of things to say. He goes, Kyle, while not a steady reader, I do enjoy your blog. My stats: I am 38, divorced for a year, separated for 2, and I have a 4- and 5-year-old. My wife cheated on me, which was the reason for the divorce. I was hoping for maybe a little advice or insight. I have been dating a lovely woman for almost 2 years. We went to college together, lost touch for 15 years, and then a mutual friend put us back together because we were both going through a divorce. We see each other 1 to 2 times a week, and about 7 months ago introduced our kids into the picture. She is now pushing for more commitment, and I'm hesitant, and I'm still afraid of getting hurt again. She thinks I am letting that fear drive me and that I should be over that fear by now. My bottom line question is this: how did you get over your fear with the Queen? Interesting question. Interesting point. I think that this guy, and it was a guy who wrote it, I think that a lot of guys especially fall into that bucket, but I don't believe that it's, gender specific. What are your initial thoughts, Laura, on what our friend has to say here?
I have a whole bunch of thoughts. So 2 years is a long time to be in a relationship. I mean, that's a committed thing. And my initial reactions, totally unfiltered, are 7 months ago they introduced their kids. So that was, to me, a choice that exhibited a certain level of commitment. So I need a little bit more from him. I wish I understood a little bit more about the kind of commitment she's asking him for that's making him uncomfortable.
Okay.
That's number one. And I guess you and I have discussed the whole children thing. Unless you have a definition or an agreement, not a definition and an agreement on what, as a couple, about what your commitment is, perhaps waiting on introducing the children is a good idea. So I think there's a few things in there. I do, however, understand. I hear it a lot from women you know what I hear? I've put my walls up, or he's got his walls up. And I never understood that. What the hell is having walls up mean?
I'm not going to go into the response that I gave him, but you hit on something that kind of ties in with what I said. So first, I think that she has to define, or he has to define, what commitment looks like for her. Because commitment looks different for different people. He may be feeling the pressure and think that automatically means wedding bells. She may see it as different. So I believe that's the first thing that was my suggestion to him. You got to really kind of understand what she means by that. Okay.
Right.
And then here's the second thing that I said to him, and I don't think that a lot of couples get this. And I'm talking about couples that overall probably have great relationships. They're dating, especially post-divorce. I said, if I was to ask her, where do you want your relationship to be in 5 years? Would her answer match yours?
Right.
And if those two answers don't match, that's your problem. Because she probably understands that, though you may have never talked about it, through the things that you've said, your actions, your behaviors, have led her to believe that you guys are on different paths. And I'm convinced of this, all right? And Laura, you may totally blow me out of the water for what I'm about to say. I'm convinced that I'm convinced that women need security in a relationship. If they feel that there is no security in that relationship, and by security I'm not talking about financial, I'm talking about that he's going to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that she will try to put that relationship into a situation that gives her the security that she needs. That's why she'll pressure him to move the relationship forward. Because she's looking for that security that she feels she doesn't have now. Here's a perfect example. They've been dating for 2 years. As you said, he sent a signal when they introduced the kids. All right?
Correct.
They waited 1.5 years to do that. So he sent a signal to her, right, that things are going a certain way. Now, maybe she took that signal and, blew it out of proportion. Maybe she misread something along the lines. But whatever the reason, where she thinks the relationship should be based on the things that have happened and where he thinks the relationship should be aren't together.
Right.
So either she is going to try to pull him in her direction to get it there.
Okay, and I agree. And so here's my fundamental problem. And I'm just going to say it because I'm feeling unfiltered tonight. I'm feeling like just let it all out there.
Lay it
Here's
on.
the thing. People do things like that, right? They push or they create situations that test this threat of loss or this fear of loss. But it's so much easier to just have the conversation. And wherever the chips fall, then you digest that information and make some decisions.
I'm going to cut you off here because I'll say, I think you're right, Laura, but you've heard the old analogy, right? It's better, sometimes it's better not to know.
Ugh.
People don't have that conversation because they're afraid that if that conversation does not go the way that they want it to, they are going to be left to make a difficult decision. Him and her have a conversation.
But you can make that now, or you can make it later when you don't have the conversation, and eventually it implodes anyway.
Obviously, at some point, they've been talking, all right? He has felt some sense of pressure from her in some way, as he put it, to, in essence, take the relationship further, more of a commitment, okay? So obviously, the commitment they have today is not acceptable to her, right?
Right. She's looking for something. We don't know what that is. Correct.
Looking for something more than what she has today. Correct? So let's say, for example, she does have that conversation. Kyle, where are we going with this? If I respond to her and I don't give her the answer she wants, she has two choices, right? She can either adjust the way that she saw things before, and now I kind of have the upper hand, or she can leave. Neither one of those at the end of the day, Laura, are the best options for most people.
I have to wonder when people say, I'm afraid of getting hurt, I have a fear of getting hurt. To me, that's like a catch-all expression that it doesn't mean shit, actually. I don't even know what that means. So my question would be, so what is it that what do you mean by that, right? I'd want to ask this person, what exactly do you mean by I'm afraid of getting hurt? Or, because there's something there. Yeah. I know enough to know that there's something else there. Whether it's that there's some nugget, you once said it, that there's something in there that makes him uncomfortable. Because if he's saying that there's a fear of getting hurt, and he's already shared with us that he was cheated on. So is there something that's not 100% comfortable and certain for him in this relationship, in which case he needs to address that with her? Because otherwise, when you're in something for 2 years and you still have a fear of being hurt, you got to get down to the core of what exactly that is.
And you're dead on. And in part of what I wrote to him, I said, I understand that you were cheated on. Obviously, it wounded you deeply. Okay? So my question to you is this. Is there something in her behavior, meaning his girlfriend now, that touches a nerve that, puts him back into that same position? In other words, he's seeing in her what he saw in his ex-wife, some sort of behavior, the way that she acts, something that's reminding her of like a deja vu moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if his answer is yes, then you're right. He has to address that with her. And then he has to make the decision, well, maybe she's not the right one for me.
Right, exactly.
Okay? And if he says no, there's nothing there, then my next response to him is, then you are painting her with the sins of someone else. And that's not right.
Right.
Your ex-wife cheated on you, not her. Same thing with me and the Queen. Yes, I was cheated on. Does that mean that I think the Queen's going to cheat on me? No. Because if I did, if I felt that way, then I am charged. She is having to pay the price for someone else's guilt.
What happens is, there's a couple of things that happen, right? Our desire to be partnered, our desire to be coupled sometimes overpowers our true comfort, the true comfort that we have within a relationship, right? Sometimes we kind of, I'd rather be in this and deal with the underlying whatever the hell it is that's there. And again, it does go back to that fear of, so you'll have to make a decision. Better now than later, people.
But you're saying is most of us choose the superficial comfort instead of the spiritual comfort.
Well, that's saying it really nicely. But
right? I mean, you would rather take the superficial comfort of having someone to spend the holidays with and birthdays, as opposed to being like, yeah, I don't see a long-term future, but I'm going to take the devil I know for the devil that I'm going to keep the devil I know instead of the devil that I don't, right?
Right. And, we convince ourselves, Kyle, we know it, that good is good enough. And that good is good enough scenario, it doesn't play out in the long run, especially after divorce. Because the tolerance for good is good enough after a first divorce. You and I both know the statistics. Second marriages, divorce rates go up. Third marriages, even higher. Until you barely have a hope in hell of staying married if you keep going. So that thing that good is not good enough has got to be taken seriously. And the only way to do that is to stop and say, this is good, but it's not good enough. And why is that? And do we want to make it exceptional or not?
So the last question that he asked, and I think it was legitimate, okay? I do believe that it was legitimate. And I even experience this now, right? He goes, to use this question, how did you get over your fear with the Queen?
Mm-hmm.
And so let's put that into a larger context so all of us understand it. You've been divorced. You felt the pain of it, whether or not you wanted it or not. It's never a pretty thing. So now you're in another relationship and you're potentially looking at taking that same path again. You're a fool to not to have those things in the back of your mind saying, what if? What if it happens again? Right? We all, even if it's a long-term committed relationship, I mean, you've been in a relationship now for 5 years, 6 years? You and Drew were to, God forbid, go your separate ways, it's still going to be devastatingly painful. Same thing with me and the Queen. So we ask ourselves that question. So here's how I answered that. I told him that I got divorced, it'll be 8 years ago in February. Laura, I am no more that guy that I was 8 years ago than I was when I was 10. I am not the same person that I was then. I don't make the same decisions that I made then. I don't have the same views on life that I had then. For me to try to compare and automatically put myself into a situation where I am thinking, well, what if I do something or what happens again? It's a self-defeating cycle.
Right.
If you're the same person you were when you got divorced, then you do not need to get married. But most of us grow from a divorce, and we actually become different people. You said it yourself. You're a different person than you were before. That's the wrong question to ask. So what's the right one? If you're sitting here like this guy and you're looking at potentially moving into a potential marriage with this woman, he has the fear of being cheated on before, and let's assume that that fear is valid, because I'm sure that it is. What is the right question to ask? If it's not, how do you get over your fear? What should be the right question?
Is this woman the right fit for me and my vision of my future?
Okay.
That's the question I would ask. But in order to ask that question, you have to be really clear about who you are and what the vision of your future is.
Right.
Those are the two pieces. The one is that you don't feel fear in that way, in the way that he's expressing it, if you are completely comfortable with the vision of your future.
Right.
As a person.
Well said.
And then you can easily assess. Listen, if Drew and I didn't work out for whatever reason, something happened, it would be devastating, but I would be okay. And I'd be okay because I have a complete vision of my future and an ability to create that myself. And I simply choose to share it with Drew. And so it's a choice every day to share it with him, but my life and my future are not dependent upon Drew.
Any final thoughts you'd give this guy?
It's time for a few conversations with her, a few, really kind of core conversations with himself and with her, actually.
I agree. They need to have some. I would say this. One of the things that I added in my response to him, I said, one of the reasons why I don't have fear with the Queen is that I took ownership for the parts in my previous marriage that failed. I've learned from them. I don't plan to make those same mistakes again. What's there to fear?
I agree with you. And you know what, Kyle? I was just thinking as you said that. I don't feel fear either because I don't put myself in situations where people can hurt me. They can do things that don't work for me, and then I'll choose to opt out of them. But I don't ever worry about someone hurting me. It's not something I worry about. Interesting.
Laura, always fun.
Great question.
Thanks a lot. Good luck. See you next time. Have a great week.